right, it is currently 5:36 on Wednesday, June 17th. The Planning Board for Somersworth will come to order. Anna, could you please call the roll?
George Gilmet. Jason Berry.
Here.
Jeff Wittezinski. Jeremy Rhodes.
Here.
John Splain.
Here.
Mark Richardson.
Here. My apologies, I'm not sure off the top of my head who is a non-voting member, but I believe with the number of folks we have, everybody who's an alternate would be appointed as a voting member for the evening. So all present can vote. All right, first item up is the approval of the minutes from May the 20th. Do we have a motion? Mr. Richardson?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Richardson. Any second?
Wasn't here.
Okay. I was here, so I'll second. All right, all those in favor?
And abstain.
Okay. All right. Okay, with that, the meeting minutes are approved. Committee reports. We do not have a representative from the council here tonight. Other reports? Mr. Richardson, SRPC?
Oh, from the Regional Planning Commission, we have the presentation.
Yep.
So, I'll say no more.
All right. All right. Thank you. Next up, old business. Any old business to come before the board?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With none this evening, we'll move on to new business. First item is SRPC's Master Plan Chapter Presentations for Economic Development, Historic and Cultural Resources, Vision, and Transportation. As usual, if you're presenting, please make sure your mics are turned on and identify yourselves.
I have a couple more for economic development and transportation.
Transportation?
Yes.
Because it's, yeah, I have.
Do you have transportation? Do you want economic development? I have one more transportation. I will take it. All right, so good evening. I'm Mark Davey. I'm with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. I'm joined by my colleagues Colin and Michael. You've seen a lot of us this year. We're happy to be back. This has been such a pleasure to work on the master plan, and we're so happy to be wrapping it up with you guys tonight. Go ahead. We had 4 chapters that we updated this round. We completed the housing chapter in late 2024, late 2023, and then land use and natural resources in the middle of 2024. And now we're into the next 4, which are the vision, transportation, economic development, and historic and cultural resources. So we kicked off outreach late last summer. We did a community-wide survey, also in tandem with the zoning project that we've also been working on in the background. So we'll be hearing more about that next month. And then we had the big community forum some of you attended in November. So, and we've been in constant communication with the planning staff, and it's been a pleasure. So I'm going to kick it off with the vision chapter. Go ahead. So the vision chapter is one of the only required chapters under state law, along with land use, and it's sort of to get the big picture when you're undergoing a master plan update. Think 15 and 20 years ahead and think, what do we want our community to look like? And it's sort of the jumping off point for the rest of the chapters. Obviously, we're doing it kind of in the middle. We're doing it a little bit unconventionally. We did it after a couple of chapters have already been done, and I think we're anticipating a few more will be done in the coming years. But it was a good gut check for some of the work we've already completed and some of the outreach and input we heard back from the community. So I sort of subdivided the vision chapter up into 3 themes. The first of which is strengthening the identity of Somersworth. I think there was a lot of reflection on the history as a mill community and just the transition of different industries that have taken place here. I'll be diving into a little bit more on that in the historic and cultural resources chapter. But then as time and land use patterns have gone on and how our greater region has evolved, I think one thing I heard over and over from the community was this idea of the 2 Somersworths, where we have our mill and we have our old town down here by the river, and we have sort of our suburban Route 108 corridor on the other side with Dover and Rochester. and just how the evolution of owning vehicles and the way we've built housing has shifted on that side of the community. So all this to say, people were interested in talking about their neighborhoods and what they found most appealing about them and how to name them. Some of this was a little bit more of a conversation we were having as part of the zoning project, but of course it bled through to a lot of the conversation going on around the historic districts and what people expect of the Historic District Commission. And I'll touch on that in a little bit too. Sites and assets, people were really excited to talk about what they like about living here. There were some people who said, I kind of accidentally fell in love with Somersworth. I ended up here because it was the most affordable place to live, whether that was 3 decades ago or after the pandemic. But people have said, I wish this piece of green space, or I wish this attraction was still here. I think it would make a really great day trip destination within the broader region and within southern New Hampshire. So there was a lot of talk about how can we enhance our green spaces. I didn't include a map, but there's a kind of a belt of wetlands that surrounds the downtown, and people were saying, how can we get some more trail work and trail integration going? You can go. The third theme that I found was, again, part of this greater regional conversation and this, how can we work better with Dover, Rollinsford, Rochester, and even Berwick, Maine, across the river. People are very interested in Berwick. People have seen the growth just across the river. I think one of the conversations I had with this group or another group was about when Domino's came to town and whether they were gonna move to Somersworth or Berwick and how they landed on that decision. I picked through some old maps just to see what did the Willand Pond area and the Weeks Crossing and Route 108 area look like. It stood out to me that that's always been sort of a key intersection within the 3 communities, and pre-Spalding Turnpike, what did Route 16 look like when it was still just a 2-lane road on that side of town? So that was sort of where I left things with the regional conversation. So that, within each chapter, of course, we outlined some broader goals and some actions to go with it. So my 3 goals sort of align with those 3 themes I just listed out across the identity piece, the assets and green space piece, and the collaboration with our neighbors piece. So I think I got the sense within the first area that people maybe not were saying Somersworth was in an identity crisis, but they were saying, like, how can we make this better than it is? So I think there's some work that's been done on the historic and cultural resources front with the historical markers that's been done. There's consistent branding with the city's colors, but I think it might be a useful tool to see how are people engaging with the city and how are people responding to maybe a logo or a slogan refresh. Is there a way we can track the social media we put out there? And that also leads to a conversation about how are people interacting and are the typical meeting formats working for people? Are there other ways to get engaged in the community? I think even within this master plan process, it was a really useful tool to put out some of the links to the survey within the water bills. And I know we talked about putting some of that out with sending kids home with some of that stuff for their parents within the school district. So I think I have some, one of the actions in there I think is about integrating more of the K-12 conversation within Somersworth. In the second goal area, again, going back to recreation and green space, it was of note to me that in Berwick's master plan, comprehensive plan, they've listed out kayaking as an asset to their side of the river as well. They actually cited the Mast Point Dam as kind of a perfect turnaround spot if you were going to go out from their kayak launch out and back. So I think it'd be neat if Somersworth said, what can we do on our side of the river? I know there's talk of a greater trail loop on along the river, maybe finding a better access point on their side or further down the river. So people were really interested in that. Lastly, with the regional collaboration opportunities, I'd be interested in maybe some small area planning, which is a way we can sit down with namely the Weeks Crossing area and down here in the two downtowns. I think it's a way to do some joint planning between more than one municipality and say, where do we line up on what we want to see for this specific area? We've already nailed down what we want out of the master plan. Somersworth is going through several consecutive master plan updates. Berwick is just about wrapping up their comprehensive plan update. Dover is about to enter their transportation master plan update. So I think the timing is kind of perfect if you wanted to dive into some of these specific areas of town. So that's where I landed on the vision chapter. I can take questions now, or we can keep rolling.
Any questions at this point? All right.
Great. Huh? Okay. Unfortunately, Carrie, who worked on the Historic and Cultural Resources chapter, couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to do my best on the Historic and Cultural Resources front. So I think the two themes that Carrie took away from, and us as a group in some of these neighborhood conversations took away from this whole process was, A, how can we enhance the history that Somersworth has downtown with being a mill town and some of the great events that are already throughout the year on Market Street and elsewhere in the city. And then what can we do with our historic district? My understanding is some of the input we got was people find some of the regulations maybe not quite as consistent. It might be difficult for households of different income brackets to address some of the historic character specific things that people want to see out of that district in town. So there's quite a few recommendations in there about how we can address some of the historic district piecemeal. Yeah, so there's some specific areas in town that people would like to see addressed. I think people were really excited for the 300th anniversary. I know I have chatted with Mr. Richardson about that a little bit and how different communities have handled their anniversaries. It seems like a lot of towns in the Seacoast have gone through a 300th or 400th anniversary recently, and a lot of the towns build off of each other. Somersworth was part of Dover, and Rollinsford was part of Somersworth. Did I get that right? Thanks. So I think people want to see the communities build off of each other and use that as a visioning tool for the future. And then the second area, of course, is the historic district. And we're doing a little bit of this with the zoning project going on the side with the Housing Opportunity Planning Grant, but my understanding is there is a grant in the works for some of these specific design guidelines that the city is looking to in the future. So I'll pause again for questions on the Historic Cultural Resources chapter. I can take notes to bring back to the team. Great. I will give it to Colin to talk about transportation.
Evening, everyone. Nice to see you again. My name's Colin. I worked on the transportation chapter. Go for it. My bullets are as minimal as possible, and they're expanded on in the chapter. Safety being priority one, and focusing on eliminating the crashes that kill and injure people. There are lots of tools out there to work on that, and SRPC is here to help. Using infrastructure to manage speed. Signs and paint don't stop a vehicle unless that person is conscious about it. The other theme is designing a walkable, bikeable Somersworth, speaking to that small town, small city feel where folks, a vibrant downtown, I envision people walking around, not cars constantly looping as much. So extending your already extensive sidewalk network to points, you could theoretically walk from downtown all the way down to Weeks Crossing on sidewalks, but connecting some more local destinations there. Lots of trails that Mark mentioned that could go to Rollinsford and potentially even a loop over into Maine. Lots of potential there. So that's an ongoing project. Next, please. Building transportation connections. Somersworth is right next to Dover, and in this region has the richest mix of modes available to the public in New Hampshire, with C&J, Amtrak, Coast, Wildcat, and there are multiple demand response transportation services for folks with disabilities or seniors. You've got a freight rail line coming through town. All of those are resources to be built upon. There's some details in there about the demand for public transit that has been increasing, especially as New Hampshire's senior population of folks over 65 is increased. And state resources have not risen to match that demand. It's currently being floated by local resources and federal dollars. And a recurring theme throughout the chapters is the potential for shared, economic benefit with Berwick right across the river and connecting the two communities as they grow. Fourth theme, similar to what Mark was talking about with Somersworth's identity and that downtown core. A lot of folks seem to speak to quite a level of pride in the community and wanting to see it grow and being invested in its future. Especially with the Mill District having a lot of potential for mixed use, and it sounds like plans are afoot, and improving that connection across those rails is going to be an important part, where there are limited pedestrian access currently and a couple of driveways. Next, please. Should be, so goals. Speaking to those themes, but I will note, as I was reading through this for the umpteenth time, I don't know why I didn't put transportation safety, which I think is goal 3, as goal 1 to match everything else. So I might flip those around if that makes sense to you. So enhancing that connection and building on the public transit network, and again, that Somersworth Berwick pairing, I just see, folks walking back and forth for dinner and entertainment from both communities across the bridge. Multimodal travel, so there's a Main Street project that fits the mode of complete streets, which really just is an old jargony way of thinking about the diversity of users, freight deliveries, pedestrians, bicyclists, the utilities underground, kind of taking the whole picture in instead of just the standard, curb dimensions. A wayfinding plan, which I think speaks to some of the identity stuff, and sort of branding, if you will, as well as helping folks who are coming out of town to find their way around. I put intelligent transportation systems is sort of related to safety. That's technology in the road and in vehicles for safety, traffic flow. You have the backups going across the bridge here in the evenings, and then speaking to that walkability for foot traffic in and out of the door of the local businesses as much as vehicle traffic on the street. Next, please. So I would recommend elevating goal 3 to become goal 1 just for continuity. The picture on the right is from the analysis we did of sidewalks throughout the region and their level of comfort and safety for pedestrians. That was a comprehensive analysis, and we can use that to drill down. And in speaking to Public Works, there are all kinds of plans afoot for sidewalks in the future. Again, been mentioning using physical infrastructure to reduce traffic speeds, and the city staff and other folks have talked about a specific guide. So your street designs are catered to the context. So you have a different design for a neighborhood versus your arterial connector down, New Hampshire 9 or High Street. Access for the greatest range of residents. It's aspirational, but having, full accessibility for major destinations. So that comes through an ADA transition plan, and then increasing the options for demand response transportation for folks that can't drive on their own. That demand for those services just continues to increase, and Somersworth is quite well situated in terms of the overlap of different services that are out there, and there are at least 5 or 6 agencies that provide that type of transportation. Last one, speaking to that kind of identity and enhancing areas that have been underdeveloped. Taking what was successful in the downtown as far as the streetscape and kind of replicating that throughout town. I hadn't been working at SRPC that long when you all finished up the Main Street project, and we came out for some before and after photos, and I really like that picture on the right as far as separating the vehicle traffic from the pedestrians, and it just creates a really nice place for people and those businesses, as far as the green space bullet there. So we've been looking throughout the region in terms of ways to the rising tide in all boats kind of thing. As you develop, as commercial development comes in or residential, how can the transportation systems be improved in conjunction rather than playing catch up later when you already all of a sudden have increased vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic, but no facilities for those types of uses. Street side dining, just thinking of a vibrant downtown with people walking around and eating outside on a nice evening like this. How can that more places like that be implemented? And then, as you remember, we did a parking study back in 2025 with a few recommendations that we would want to pull into this and continue as a separate operation. I think that's my last slide. Any pressing questions?
Well, the opportunity to increase freight traffic, especially for a downtown that's trying to be a walkable.
Mr. Brzezinski, if you can just turn your mic on, please.
Oh.
There we go.
Do I need to start over? You touched on increased freight traffic being a positive, and yet we're talking about a walkable downtown, and that freight traffic is pretty close to downtown.
Yep.
How does that help us?
So I hope I spoke to the opportunities to be balanced with potential impacts. The New Hampshire North Coast line, whenever I speak to the folks that run that, there are opportunities for long-term future, something like a facility either in Somersworth or Rochester where trucks can literally be picked up and put on the rail cars. They have consistent demand for gravel. The propane that gets run on that train, that guy, it sounds like there's more capacity just waiting if the CSX line is improved. So there is potential for increased freight traffic, which could, or capacity for freight movements, which could benefit Somersworth businesses. But as you point out, how can that be balanced with freight trains? If you have more of them or heavier loads or more dangerous loads going through your downtown, that needs to be planned for, especially if you have an improved downtown mill area with more pedestrians going across to businesses and residences. So I was trying to speak to more of an opportunity to be balanced with potential impacts to avoid just more freight coming through without considering the impacts. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
You, me? All right, thank you. more comments than questions, okay? I'm going to roll my thoughts together between vision and transportation because your presentation really hit it on the head there. Starting with vision, right? I think you said it best. We're going through an identity crisis. We don't know what the hell we want. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we want to be. If I could put a label on it, we are the city that connects Dover to Rochester. We are the city that connects Dover to Berwick. Awesome, right? What is that? To me, we are a residential town with nothing to offer. This vision gives us the ability to say, what do I want to be when I grow up, right? It's important. And until you know what you want to be, we're spinning our wheels. You know, you look at your neighboring towns, the successful ones. You know, you look at Portsmouth, what are they known for? They're known for tourism. They're known for shopping. They're known for food, entertainment. Okay, we're not Portsmouth. Dover, I mark them as being the quaint town. They're small. They're a small town with a big town vibe, but you still feel like you're in a small town. Shopping, food, you know, something to emulate, right? Berwick, they're kind of like us. They're a bedroom town coming up. I think they're starting to figure out what they want to be. That development is really good for that. I still don't know what we are yet, and I challenge everybody. Let's choose. Let's figure it out, right? You know, but one thing I do know is that I do not want to be the town that's like the next town over. Be something special, something that's unique to you, right? Maybe Somersworth becomes the place of entertainment, right? I'm a musician, right? I play bars every weekend, and it's fun. It's a nightlife. Dover doesn't have a nightlife, not really. They have bars, but they don't have the night scene that Portsmouth has. You know, that could be something that's unique to us. You know, cater to the night crowd. Anyway, moving on to transportation. You know, we talk about the bridge. Our biggest strength is our biggest weakness, right? Our connection to Berwick creates the worst traffic in the area, bar none. Drive out in front. You know, you sit there. I've had times where it's taken me 10, 15 minutes to get from just up the street to the bridge. It's insane. You know, what we lack is collaboration, and I love that statement. Somersworth and Berwick, heart. I like that. We need to work better with our neighbor, right? Our plans should flatter each other. We don't want to be Berwick, we don't want to be Dover, but what we do should work with them, right? We should make each other better by our association and proximity, right? So I would strongly encourage that we have a collaboration with Berwick and figure out what they want and see what we can do to partner with them to make both of us better. Another thing that I think we also need to work on for safety reasons, our biggest strength and our biggest weakness is that bridge. We need to work on traffic, right? It is not safe, right? Try crossing the street right here at the corner. It's dangerous. I've almost been hit several times. Would love to see us collaborate with Berwick and work on the traffic patterns. Just an idea, just a spitball. No left turns. Left turns should be banned at that bridge. Take out the light, everybody's got to turn right. So we should look at traffic patterns. And hopefully we can get rid of the traffic flow on both sides of the bridge from all three directions. You know, so I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here that we need to take advantage of. And then also work that into our vision of what you want to be when you grow up, right? We lack the foundation to get to our end destination. So I think we need to spend more time in both of those areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Mr. Spine, then Mr. Richardson.
I just totally agree with you because you touched point like how can you make downtown more walkable, but when it comes to traffic, you have the high street, which has like the most traffic in the town, and it cuts through the downtown. So first, how can we address, for example, the Salmon River and the downtown, which is like an asset, but I don't see any like solutions when it comes to how can you incorporate the river into the downtown, any kind of solutions, because it touched point here that it is a great asset for the city, but doesn't really give any solution how you can incorporate that into the downtown. So this is one that I like to address. And the other one is that you talk about collaborating with the other part of the city, the Bruick, but there's only one bridge. Can you how to say, like include some sort of maybe building more bridges or some sort of bypass through the downtown to connect with Bruick, or more how to say, like a pedestrian bridges? Because we have the river that cuts through both cities, but there's only one bridge that connects both sides. So something that addresses that, that's one way. Or I don't see, I don't see here touch pointing or addressing the traffic. For example, how can you bypass High Street and how to say, avoid traffic through the Washington Street or the Indigo Road, if I'm not wrong, Indigo Hill Road, something that, because we want to make the downtown more walkable, but when you have the High Street, just ongoing traffic, there's not pleasant for people to stop by and, shop into the stores that we have. So I like more to see these kind of solutions, how to make it more walkable, and some solutions for the traffic, and how to incorporate the river into the downtown. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, I want to, I guess, address the historical and cultural part here. One of the things that Mark started with was the Milltown. When I moved here in 1980, I heard it over and over again about the Milltown, the Milltown, the Milltown. Well, the mill first came here in 1823. The first one was built in what's now Rollinsford in 1822. Where we were Somersworth then. Both communities were Somersworths. We've been Somersworth since 1729. History didn't start in Somersworth in the 1820s. I right now have 171 Revolutionary War soldiers who I can tie to living in Somersworth at some point in their life. I know where a lot of them are buried, and we pay zero attention to them. Zero to the contribution that they've made to our country. Once in a while, when we do a Graves Tales or Talking Tombstones or something, a Revolutionary War soldier is included. There's a few of them in Forest Glade Cemetery. There's another few at Lord's Court Cemetery. We're coming up on our 300th anniversary in just a couple of years. And we need to pay tribute to everybody in this community. Granted, by the time of the Revolution, there was only a small couple of families living in what's now Somersworth. Most of those folks were in what's now Rollinsford. But nevertheless, we can't erase that name change from our history. We need to honor it. For the last several years, I've been trying to work with Rollinsford and recognizing that we have an awful lot in common. I spent this last year working in the Rollinsford grade school doing 5 programs with those kids. Excellent kids. Excellent kids. They're learning about their history. I'd love to do that here in Somersworth too, but they asked. So I went. It was an opportunity that we both couldn't ignore. At the same time, it's going to be our 300th anniversary. It's Rollinsford's 180th. One thing that Dover did not do in their 400th anniversary is include any of the towns. There are 6 of them that were part of Dover back in the 17th century. Aside from Dover itself, there were 6 other towns that were now in existence that were then part. They didn't ask any one of them to be part of their celebration. That's horrible in my mind. So when we talk about our history, to me, we need to go back to where it begins, literally in the 17th century. The first ones to settle in what's now Rollinsford came here just a few years after the settlements in Portsmouth. The Wentworths arrived here in 1640. That's huge history. And that's what all of it we need to honor, and we need to include both communities when we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Other questions or comments? Mr. Wazinski?
I appreciate that this has opened up some conversation because I agree with you, Mr. Berry. We got to figure out who we are. I remember just last year walking over. There was a food trail where you walked around the city and sampled all the different foods in downtown. It was most people didn't even know about it. It was poorly advertised, and there were a lot of nice restaurants in the area. But also, when we talk about, we think about a day like this. Of course, we only get about 30 of these days a year, where everyone's having ice cream and walking around and shopping. What are we shopping at? Most people get their stuff from Amazon. So the devil's in the details. What are the stores that we're going to? What are the restaurants that we're going to? And I think that's where we need to think about. And us in the planning board, how do we want to steer that? So it's a comment. There's no solution to that yet, but it's something that is important enough to think about. And I also want to say about, you mentioned Portsmouth. Portsmouth's got a tremendous history. But also, if you walk around downtown Portsmouth, there is an underlying piece of artists, community, going on in a lot of these towns that are being resurrected. And I think we're missing an opportunity with some of our festivals in actually generating music and art on a more regular basis. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wazinski. I would just underscore a couple of those comments. I think Mr. Berry is absolutely right. We do need to determine exactly what we're going to be and what we are. As a city, we have been kind of that in-between place. We're physically the smallest city in the state, and that's, I think, led to us being a compact mill town, a farming community first, that split off of Dover, turned into a mill town with the boom of the Industrial Revolution in the Northeast, and then kind of becoming a bedroom community as the mills declined. We're at an opportunity to reinvent ourselves now and recognize where this city has come from, but also where it goes. Talking about the cultural components, absolutely. One of the things that drew my wife and I to the Seacoast and staying in this region after we both graduated from college was the arts community that exists around here. And that's something that can be taken advantage of, whether that's murals, whether that's public art installations, whether that's encouraging a thriving local music scene. We have at least 2 musicians on the board. I live next to another one who plays out frequently in town and around the area. And there is that scene if we choose to attract it. Dealing with some of the underlying infrastructure components. Traffic is an underlying problem, and it's difficult to put another bridge in. It's a huge amount of capital that has to go in for that. But if we can increase the volume of what can safely flow over that bridge, whether that's working with Berwick to convert their side of that into a rotary, as much as people hate those, they do increase throughput, whether that's timing lights, whether that's preventing left turns to reduce the risk, to free up traffic flow on High Street. What we've been provided with here, with the work that you've done, is a toolkit. We have the foundation to make decisions about what we want our community to be, about how we interact with our neighbors, how we highlight where we've come from and where we're going. The amount of work that you've clearly poured into this gives us the tools to be successful as we make those decisions.
That's great feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more.
Oh, yep, we have economic development, right?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Polizzotti, planner at SRPC. I won't take up too much more of your time because the economic development chapter does draw a lot on some of the other chapters, given the interesting intersections between vision, historic cultural resources, transportation, and some of the past chapters that were done as well. But I do just want to start with what we heard and what's kind of interspersed throughout the chapter for economic development. So the city doesn't have an economic development chapter. So this was really an exciting time to kind of develop that vision for Somersworth. And we asked several questions throughout workshops, surveys, engagements with you all, and some other efforts to really try and paint a cohesive picture of what people think of the city. And we heard a lot of very thoughtful in both directions feedback. People were very frank and honest about what they thought. Some of the comments that are interspersed throughout the economic development chapter are up there on the screen, along with some kind of key words that people were using to describe Somersworth, like bedroom community. A lot of people saw the positive things in Somersworth, and a lot of people highlighted some of the struggles of the city. But Somersworth has a lot of really great things about it, and people highlighted that throughout. So the city has really, really great bones in terms of its built infrastructure in its downtown, along its key commercial corridors, and a lot of really, really rich history as well. So the economic development chapter, like the other chapters, is divided up into several different themes that collectively represent the vision for economic development in Somersworth. And for this chapter, there were 4 main themes that were identified. And we've discussed this over several meetings. We've refined it a little bit. But what was kind of landed on for this version of the draft is a theme centered on the downtown of Somersworth, how to make it stronger, how to make it more vibrant, more walkable. And we highlight different tools that the city could utilize in that section of the chapter and different strategies like placemaking and different things like that. The second theme is really supported on supporting local businesses that are here, attracting new businesses to the city, and supporting the workforce and the workforce pipeline, including through the school system. So ensuring that there's that talent development that matches what businesses need in the city, and can also be forward-thinking and can meet the needs of the future as well. The third theme, is really focused on ensuring that there is still robust economic development continuing beyond the downtown area, 108, Route 9. Different things that we discuss in this section are connectivity to these different areas, ensuring that there's multimodal transportation. And we also talk about some tools that could be leveraged to strengthen economic development in these areas, like the existing ERZs outside of downtown, and then the potential for adding more in the community. And then the fourth theme, which really overlaps nicely with the other chapters, is this constant discussion about identity, specifically with the lens of what is the economic identity of Somersworth. And within this theme, we also talk about the importance of creating strong regional partnerships, and we call out Berwick pretty directly as an opportunity to really build strong ties with, whether it be through wayfinding and connectivity over the bridge, leveraging some of the investments that they're making across the river to redevelop their downtown, and how can Somersworth complement that, and really just highlighting that relationship with the community across the river is important to economic development in the city. So from those 4 different themes, 6 goals were identified, and they fall into those buckets of strengthening downtown, strengthening the workforce and business support, encouraging development along those key corridors like Route 9 and 108, establishing an economic identity for Somersworth, and then also building that partnership with neighboring communities. I did not put the action items on the slides because we developed 25 of them. Building off of some of the comments of the board about a toolkit or a kind of a implementable guidebook, we hope that a lot of the things that are discussed in the action items are considerations that the city can make to improve economic development. I'm happy to answer any specific questions folks may have, but I do know that some other comments related to like leveraging the river and some other things are addressed in the actions in the economic development chapter.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board at this point?
I've seen different places that have built recently, in Florida or in other places. They all have a theme park or something in the downtown that brings the people to the town. I think that's something we need to work on in this area. I agree with a music venue or something like that occasionally in the downtown, and, we need to bring the people more together. There's no question about that. And as far as the traffic flows, I know we're off of that, but what about a one-way system into the town? This, with boggling up on High Street, definitely not gonna eliminate that, but at least it would eliminate twice as many cars if it was a one-way, loop around the city. Not everybody's in favor of that, I understand, but that's just, it's something to bring out, food for thought, like they say. For safety reasons more than anything.
We did hear that comment several times throughout, especially, how do we route traffic in a safe way? And it came up so much that it is, I'm not sure if it's implemented in transportation, but it is implemented here as a consideration for the city to think about for economic development. And to your first comment, too, about a gathering place, in our discussions of placemaking, the plaza came up a lot in our engagement, and it's also discussed in this chapter as well as a potential place to focus efforts.
I was around when the first Children's Festival and stuff was, and this whole downtown was not just the plaza and not just the Pines. I mean, it started at the bridge at Market Street, and, it went all the way down Main Street. I understand there's not a lot of people in town now, but that was one big affair at one time. And of course, it's dwindled every year, but it'd be nice to be able to see some of that stuff come back, because that was one big part, one big thing that the city did and was involved with. And I know they should be able to bring some of that stuff back.
Comments? Just explain.
Yeah, I support the idea, like if there is some sort of idea behind revitalizing the plaza to have some sort of different kind of gathering throughout the year, that would be nice to incorporate that into the economic plan.
Thank you.
Okay. With no other comments, I'd just add on there, if the first pieces we discussed tonight are the what, this is the how. These changes don't happen without funding. And the economic development chapter gives us the tools on funding those. So, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. And where our regular chair has joined us, I'll pass this over to him. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
I could have been doing this.
Our next item is new business, Stratford Regional Planning Commission Master Plan Chapter Presentation, Economic Development, Historic and Cultural Resources, Vision, and Transportation.
No, we just did that one. Sorry, Ron. It's B, the public hearing for the Somersworth Public Library renovation.
We move on to item B, public hearing for the Somersworth Public Library Renovation Project, presentation by Placework. Director Mears, has anything to add?
Yes, thank you. The library expansion project consists of around 1,700 square foot building addition and renovation. The alterations to the site will address accessibility improvements to access to restrooms, the children's room improvements, and code compliance and ADA compliance. In addition, the following improvements are being proposed: a new elevator, a main electric service and distribution upgrade, new LED lighting and controls throughout the building, HVAC equipment replacement and control upgrade, new fire protection sprinkler system, upgraded extended telecommunications system, security upgrades, existing roof replacement, landscape improvements, and stormwater and drainage improvements on the site. The property is located in the business district in the form-based code area 3. This is just coming before us because it's a governmental use of land, and it's just for conceptual, and there's no action required by the board at this time. But they wanted to share the site plan and the landscaping plan at this time. And the team from Placework is here, along with city staff, our city engineer. All right, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite the Somersworth Public Library to make their presentation. And please state your name and address or your affiliation.
There you go.
Thank you. I have a laptop if that's easier. I don't know how the slides are working here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so, sorry, my name is Josh Lacasse. I'm the project manager from Placework. We're the architectural consultant to the city, responsible for the design of this project. I have Alyssa Murphy in the audience, who's a principal from Placework, along with JJ McBride from Emmanuel Engineering with me. We wanted to come in tonight and give you all just an update on where the project stands, where it's heading, and give everybody a chance to ask questions and provide just an overview of where we're at. So I mentioned Emmanuel Engineering, so we have a civil engineer with us and an architect. We also have a number of other team members who I just wanted to recognize quickly. I won't read them to you, but we have specialists in building systems design, structural engineers, landscape architects, et cetera, who have been helping us on the team develop the design in collaboration with, of course, the city engineer, the city manager, and the city council at some regular intervals. So just to give a sense of where this project has been, and you can tell the consultant put this together because I know that this project started in conception many, many years before 2021. But from our perspective, Placework, we were brought in 2021 with what started as an accessibility study for the library. It's one of the main challenges that exists in the library today is making the facility accessible for folks with mobility challenges. And so initially, we were brought in to study the the ways of making that happen. During the course of that process, the city, the library staff, and others started to realize that there was a little bit more of a holistic picture needed. And so in 2023, we came back to do a little bit more of a comprehensive architectural feasibility study. There was the realization that there was a little bit more space needed than they currently have down there at the library, and some sort of underserved spaces, the children's section in particular, which is currently in the basement of the building, needed a little bit more attention than just a strict accessibility study. Across the top, you see our interface with the city council. So we came to them to present the findings of the accessibility study in 2023. And then we came back in 2024, 25 to do, to implement some of the findings of the feasibility study. So we went through a design process and ended up with a project that is more or less ready to go into construction back in 2025. Came back to the city council just about a year ago, I think it was, and presented the findings of that design process. And this white sort of section in the middle is sort of where we are now. Not to say that nothing has happened, because there have been many, many conversations ongoing. But the project itself is really kind of in between the design and the construction phase at this moment. So here we are, planning board presentation. Excited to be here and give you all a sense of what the project is. So the goals of the project didn't really change from the outset. I think these are a lot of the goals that were defined in the feasibility study and have sort of stuck with the design as an overarching guide. So again, I won't read them off. I think that accessibility is the key and really the driver. Safety, accessibility, the children's room, as I mentioned, making that a little bit more comfortable and appropriate for children. And then increasing the available outdoor space. We really see a part of this project, and maybe it's a good segue from the planning presentation, but as a part of the downtown, there's a street front piece of this project, and bringing the library out onto the street, Main Street, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But this is really the punchline here. You can see the sort of split level configuration of the interior of the library. It really makes these lower and upper levels that you see more or less inaccessible to anyone that has a mobility challenge. And so that's really the genesis of the project. We'll go through a little bit of the site design. I'm the architect, so I'm going to speak a little bit about the design intent, and then I'm going to turn it over to JJ to get into some of the more technical details of the design. So we'll try to get through this. So this is the existing building. The project proposes an addition to the the left side of the image that you see here, the open space just to the left of the existing library. Oops. See if that works. Existing conditions plan. So again, this sort of open space that you can see here on the left side of the footprint. A couple things to say about the existing site. I think most are familiar with the alley running sort of between the library and the post office. That alley is actually a right-of-way that was created around the time of the urban renewal efforts here in town. And so it exists to allow free access, even though it's on the city property, free access through the site from one end to the other. And then, of course, the trees. There are 4 mature trees on this site. We would need to remove those as part of the project. They are overhanging the existing building. It's a maintenance concern, and so that's another sort of element of the site design which we're seeking to reconstitute, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then existing utilities, we don't need to get into too much detail, but the project will be reconnecting the building to most of the existing city utility networks in the vicinity. Okay, so this is the proposed design. Again, the addition is, about a third of the footprint more added to this left side of the footprint. We would be making the existing entrance in the alley fully accessible, for the, wheelchair accessible, and adding, instead of the diagonal parking spaces, we'd be adding some handicap parking spaces at this sort of plan north side of the building. The existing spaces currently extend into that right-of-way we talked about, and so there's a desire to make that right-of-way clear and open once again. The existing sort of monumental stairs along Main Street would remain more or less as they are, and then there would be the creation of a new accessible entrance just about at sidewalk level to access the library addition with an outdoor terrace area that fronts onto the main street that you'll see in a moment. Part of the concept with this outdoor terrace as well is to allow, potentially allow off-hours access into a shared meeting area inside, just inside this door. And so that is sort of another element of the design. We have proposed a couple of, you might call them signature trees in this terrace to provide shade and separate the users from the street just a little bit. Really what the addition is doing for us is allowing us to meet the grade of the street and allow that accessible entry point at the main street side. As you can see from the cross-section, we are trying to negotiate several different floor levels and make those all fully accessible. So another key element of the project is on the inside is the addition of a new elevator to make that happen. And that's the project as it would appear from Main Street. You can see the terrace in sort of the foreground with the trees. There is an idea of bringing the, reinforcing the inside to outside connection through this large wall of glass. It has some frit on it that would be contributing to solar, solar gain and mitigating the sun. And also providing some visual interest on the design. So these are some early mock-up studies that we did on the material palette. We are using complementary materials to the existing building, so concrete facade panels, terracotta cladding, which is complementing the existing brick, metal trim, and glass. It's a pretty simple material palette that we've proposed here. And again, just on the inside, again, reinforcing this idea of that inside-outside connection, providing places that people want to occupy and giving the children a space that they can use a little bit more effectively than the one they currently occupy. So this is the proposed civil site plan. I'm going to turn it over to JJ, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the technical aspects of the design, and then we can kind of take any questions that the board has.
So as Josh said, I'm JJ McBride from Emmanuel Engineering. We're the civil engineers for this project. Josh touched a bit on some of the site work already, but so I guess I'll mainly be talking about the drainage. Before I get into that, I did want to talk about the parking a little bit. Josh spoke about the ADA the ADA parking spots in back, we're also adding one in the front here. He talked about the access in the front of the building. For access, we'll need to make that curbing flush with the road, so to improve access into the front of the building. Utilities, Josh spoke a little about the gas is to remain as it is. We're proposing new domestic and fire water into the side of the building. Sorry, the gas is right here too. And the water would be connecting right in here. The electrical service comes in here, which would be replaced in kind. We've got a proposed new sewer line. Where's that? Right in this area, which would connect into the public sewer as well for the new building. And then I'll talk more about the drainage, but we've got our overflow drainage pipe connecting into the stormwater in the middle of Main Street. So to handle the increase in impervious area, we're proposing a stone swale right along the new building there, which would also connect in with, there's proposed stone underneath the patio. So this is all kind of like a continuous stone area.
Underground.
Yeah, underground, under the patio. The patio is concrete at the surface. So none of that underneath would be visible. But so during smaller storm events, it allows water to be stored in that area and infiltrate into the ground. And then in larger storm events, we've got a series of under drains within the stone underneath the patio, as well as up the swale, which connects into to Main Street, as I mentioned before. The water would be collecting. There's the parking in back. It kind of slopes down this way, kind of towards that low area near the what is that? I guess it's the south side of the proposed building, but Plan West, I guess you could say. And so we've got a curb inlet there, which that would bring it into the stone. The new building roof water that connects into the stone as well, and then the patio would also run right into the stone. So it's pretty much collecting the proposed impervious as well as the existing in back. Currently, there's a patio and like walk area in this area. That's to be removed, and plantings are to be, or we're proposing plantings in that area. And then this larger patio area would obviously replace that. But I think that covers the site stuff. And hand it back to Josh.
Just to kind of, we do have a professional landscape architect who's looked at this. I don't have that person here right now, but he developed with us a planting plan. We worked with the city to review the invasive and preferred species lists. I think maybe DPW has developed, and so these tree selections are developed in coordination with that document. But as JJ mentioned, most of the landscape on this sort of right side of the building and the Main and Station Street corner would be redeveloped and replanted. There's currently walk or a terrace in this side, which would be sort of removed and planted with new plantings. And I think that, oops, I don't know why this keeps happening. Michelle's introduction covered most of this. This is just sort of a list of the additional non-site related improvements that are being proposed, but it's essentially a full infrastructure replacement for the building, new lighting, all new systems upgrades, replacement to the existing roof, and the elevator. I think that covers it.
Thank you. Open the public hearing. Anybody care to comment on the new library? Any correspondence, Director Mears?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman?
Seeing none, close public hearing. Turn to questions from the board. Mr. Barry, then Mr. Rhodes.
No questions, just a few comments. I like the design. I think it's very appropriate what you guys have selected, both on the architectural side and from the engineering side. I think you guys are dealing with a very tight parcel. I think the drainage is appropriate. I think the ramp and accessibility is very appropriate. I like the concept for your facade, and I love the idea of the extension and getting ADA accessibility in it. So you're going to get full support from me. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Rhodes and Mr. Richardson.
So one question first. Most acronyms I've become familiar with over time, but LULA for the elevator, what does that stand for?
Yeah, forgive me. That stands for limited use, limited access. It's essentially a smaller scale elevator that's more appropriate for existing buildings typically. A large elevator requires something like 14 feet of floor to floor at the top and things like that just won't fit here.
Makes sense. So a few comments at this point. First of all, our city library staff have done a tremendous job utilizing what I think is best characterized as a challenging physical space for a very long time here. And seeing the changes that you're proposing with this and thinking of what they can do once they have some of those shackles taken off is really encouraging. I love a lot of the design that you've done here. It marries a modern appearing structure with what was probably closer to a mid-century one and makes it actually look good. I love the continuation of the flying bird sculpture that's on the outside into the fritted glass. Hopefully that survives contact with financing. It's beautiful, and I hope that that can happen. The fritted glass wall is gorgeous and would be a centerpiece of revitalizing downtown. Just wanted to mention at the end point of this that libraries are a cornerstone of communities, and ours has been operating in a challenged state for quite a while, seeing so many physical plant upgrades, so much design improvement, and so much better accessibility coming in all with one project on a very tight, very challenging lot is incredibly well done work. So very happy with what you proposed, and I hope it makes it to reality in the state that it's in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful design. I do have a question about how tall are the trees going to be when they're mature? And I ask that because right now during the Children's Festival, if it's a very warm day and sun is shining, that's probably, those trees that are there now are really the only place people can go to have some shade and get out of the heat a little bit. So that's why I'm asking.
That's a great question. I don't have an exact answer for you. We did, in this proposed view, scale the trees more or less as they would be as they mature. So the design intent for these trees is that they don't grow to be taller than the building itself, which is maybe 24 feet or something like that, or not even. So they won't be towering trees, but I can come back with a little bit more specifics about how tall.
Yeah, and do you have a timeline, roughly speaking? Do you have a timeline?
Well, so I think the next step, as the city envisions, is to engage a construction manager. And so that would be the entity who could really pin down the timeline. For planning purposes, we estimated the construction of this building would take about a year, maybe a little bit more. I think that the real next step is to have that construction manager sort of verify and take all the factors into account to make sure that that's reasonable.
Yeah, I asked because it has been an issue that's been going on for some time now. People are looking forward to it. Maybe our city councilor here might have a better idea of timeline and can answer the question a little bit more, but that's why I asked. So,
Mr. Witham, then Mr. Spillane.
Thank you. Sort of on cue, Mr. Richardson, I was going to kind of provide a quick update on, maybe fill in a few of the blanks in the timeline that was presented. So City Council on Monday night did unanimously support a $7.3 million bond for this project that was based upon estimates provided to us by Placework. That now will allow the city manager to move forward with securing a construction management firm. We hope to do that by the fall, and by early to mid-fall, have the construction management firm work up a scope of work and numbers with a not-to-exceed price, or a maximum price, however they phrase that. That would be another juncture in this process where the City Council would decide on how we will fund this project. Again, 7.3 is a bonded amount. We are hopeful for some grants to soften that blow, and I think there's also a desire by several of us on council to use up to maybe even a little bit more than $1 million of fund balance to soften this even more. So the funding strategies, there are several in play, and I think that'll be a subject of discussion once we know what that not to exceed price is, once we have that construction management firm on board. But the hope is to, if you will, give this their formal green light sometime this fall, so that maybe some preliminary work starts over the winter, and then right into the construction season of 2027. So kind of spitballing a little bit there, but that's kind of where we were at. I do have a few questions, if I could continue. Any indication of any hazardous building materials in some of your preliminary work, asbestos, lead, is that something we're going to have to deal with?
It is. There has been some study of that. There was a report generated. That work, or at least an estimate of that work, has been included in that forecasted budget that we provided to you. I would say, having worked with a few existing buildings in my career, you always find some, and so some additional or things you didn't expect, and so for that instance, we tend to include additional contingencies in that budget for unforeseen conditions, and so.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And existing building, roof water goes into the existing stormwater collection system on Main Street. We're planning to maintain that, upgrade it,
As far as the stormwater is concerned from the existing roof, we're going to divert that within the building and out through a new outlet to reconnect to that Main Street system after passing through the collection structure that JJ.
Just an interesting historical story with regard to that. When we reconstructed the downtown, that rather aggressive project, the roof drain line into the stormwater system was missed, and after a significant rain event, there was a significant water backup, which then created a lot of exploration in the identification that we had an oops, and they forgot to connect the line. So I just mindful of that. I don't want that to happen again. So
It'll be picked up inside the building.
Excellent.
Yep.
No further questions for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Spillane.
I do have a question when it comes to the addition that you're proposing. The south side, is that the new entrance to the building, to the library? On the landscape, yes.
Are you referring to this?
Yeah, there's going to be a new entrance.
it won't be used as an entrance, and there's still some, I think, operational discussions to be had with the library and the city about how exactly that door would be secured. It could be left open during business hours, but really I think it's an operational
Because I
discussion.
was going to suggest like the ramp can be the opposite direction. Instead of going on the new building, you can go to the new existing entrance. Because you were talking about the risk, managing all that. So why opening that for, for people when you can lead the people to the existing entrance,
Yeah, the difficulty is the amount of distance you would need to go up to get to this is about over 5 feet.
Okay, so
whereas
that is different level than the existing one, right? Can you
Correct.
On the section that you on that slide?
Yeah, so the existing entry is at this 195 level. The street is somewhere slightly lower than this 190 foot 8. So we're really meeting the sidewalk grade closer to the 190 foot 8
That's the reason
elevation.
why. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You haven't developed the other plans for the other like first or second floor. You haven't. You have it in this slide, right?
We do have the interior plans for the building. Yeah, it's fully developed. We sort of put together this package based on the planning board's interest in the site. But, I can show.
Because I was trying to, how to say, figure out how the elevator will work connecting those levels. And it was kind of like questioned, you know what I mean? It was kind of hard to figure that out in my mind because I was imagining the space, yes.
Yeah, there's a full set of architectural plans that we haven't
Okay.
showed you today, but this is just the first floor plan for the
Okay, it was
building.
just a concern on my end.
Yep.
Just seeing just the elevator and the way that you were proposing that new entrance.
So this is the proposed elevator inside the building. So it's connecting those floors where they split, essentially.
Oh, so the one in the middle is not an elevator that you're proposing? So if you go in the middle of the plan, you have like some doors that open it,
This-
so there's no elevator?
No, storage.
Oh, okay. my.
The elevator is here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
The question, you'll still be able to access the main floor from the back street entrance, right?
Correct.
That's not gonna change.
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Wodazinski,
I don't know if this is already part of this renovation, but are there any community rooms that would be part of this, that would be set aside for community members to have private meetings?
The intention of the room that I'm circling here is just that. It's a multi-purpose meeting room for, I think we've got it set up for 12 here, but it could be up to 15, 20, 25 people depending on the configuration of the seating.
Oh.
And so that room is the library's flexible meeting
Excellent.
space.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's the room that fronts onto the plaza, the terrace along Main Street.
any other questions from the board? Any final comments by Director Mears?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman?
So no action needed at this time?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item C, Civil Consultants New England is seeking site plan and conditional use permit approval for a 15,000 square foot industrial building with associated parking infrastructure on a property located at 24 Interstate Drive in the Industrial I District, assesses map 58, lot 6H, site number 02-2026, and CUP number 01-2026. Director Mears, anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to construct a 15,000 square foot single-story building for industrial use with office area with 28,000 square feet of new pavement with associated utilities and parking facilities. The applicant is seeking to continue the public hearing and application to the July 15th Planning Board meeting to address staff comments on the proposed development before it comes before us. So just looking for a motion to continue this application to the July 15th Planning Board meeting.
Any comment by the board before we do the motion? Anybody have a motion? Mr. Gilmet?
Go ahead.
Motion made by Mr. Gilmet,
That'll be a second.
seconded by Mr. Witham. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? The application is continued. Item 4D under new business, David Carr, 7 Brew Drive Through Coffee, is seeking conceptual review for a drive-through coffee shop with associated parking infrastructure on property located at 196 Tri-City Plaza in a residential commercial RC district, assessors map 40, lot 5B, site number 06-2026. Director Mears.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is seeking a conceptual review comments on the proposed 510 square foot drive-through coffee shop. It's a coffee kiosk. Site previously was developed with a gas station that will be demolished. The portion of the property, the development is located in a residential commercial district. This use is allowed. This is just a conceptual consultation phase. They wanted to come before the planning board before they submitted the full site plan. So no action is required by the planning board tonight. But they're happy to seek any feedback regarding the project after the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This time I'd like to invite David Carr to make his presentation.
So good evening. My name is Tim Hool. I'm a civil engineer with BL Companies. We are the engineer, surveyor, landscape architect of record for 7 Brew Coffee. Mr. David Carr is one of their chief development officers. So as mentioned, we are working on this project for 7 Brew Coffee. I could share a brief bit about them. I'm sure it's a new brand to this area, but 7 Brew Coffee is they're a rapidly growing coffee chain. They were founded in Arkansas in about 2016 or so. Over the next 4 to 5 years, they operated just as a small startup business with growing to a handful of locations. In about 2021, they transitioned to a franchise model. And since about 2021, they have grown to, I think at the start of 2026, there were over 600 locations, primarily through kind of the heart of the country, but they've been really expanding the last couple of years to kind of the Northeast, the Deep South, and out West. Currently, they are really trying to push into New England. They have a few stores in Connecticut, but they're really looking to push farther north. And actually recently, their first location was just approved in Maine. To my knowledge, this is the first location that is going through or about to start permitting here in New Hampshire. So I can certainly touch on a little bit of 7 Brew as well. And I do have a rendering I can bring up a little bit later in so we can see some of the building elements that they like to propose. But 7 Brew is a very small building footprint for a drive-through restaurant. They are about 500 square feet for the main building. They do not have any interior seating. It is purely a drive-through format. They don't even have like a true walk-up window. So it really is vehicle-based, more for that, the highway business districts of communities. So it's usually a couple employees work inside to prepare the order. They have an accessory, about 200 square foot cooler building on the outside for storage of their, the beverage products, the milks, the ice, things like that. As far as staffing goes, they operate more of like the more modern Chick-fil-A style, where everything for their interactions is very personal. It's face-to-face. So they have someone, they call them texters. They walk up to your car window as you enter the queue. They take your order face-to-face. They enter it on a tablet. And then you proceed through the queue. And as you pull up to the building, they have what they call brewistas. They take your order from the building and walk it out to you to your car physically. So the entire customer experience is a personal experience. You're interacting directly with a person. There's no intercom. There's no, there's no menu boards that you're interacting with, back in the queue. It's all interacting directly with a person, an associate. So quickly, just the existing site, it's the Tri-City Plaza on the corner of Tri-City Road and High Street. As mentioned, the pad site that Seven Brew is looking to develop was formerly a gas station. The underground tanks and canopies have since been removed. The environmental process, to my understanding, is close to close out with the state. It's not 100% final, but all the latest test results have been clean and they're trending in the right direction. So I believe they're potentially closing out with the state by the end of this year at the latest, provided the last round of tests come back positive. There are no wetland resource areas on site or jurisdictional zones on site. The nearest wetland is the pond across the street, and no floodplains. So I can jump ahead to the site plan and see if I can zoom this in a little bit, because I know it's a bit small here. It is a truly small development, like I said, because of I think I moved the image there. Because it is such a small building footprint, they can really nestle into smaller pad sites. Seven Brew does lend themselves fairly well to these kind of small, isolated redevelopment pockets, like a small gas station or similar. So what we are proposing, if you could see kind of this bold line coming around the top of the screen, down the right-hand side and around the back, that is currently the identified lease line for that, the gas station, but that really kind of defines the existing footprint. Seven Brew does need to expand on that a little bit, but generally speaking, they fit nicely. So we're proposing a right-in, right-out driveway off of High Street. And this driveway would connect all the way through to the plaza behind, to their drive aisle, so that any traffic either entering or exiting from the southbound direction on High Street can enter the plaza through the signal just north of this, just on the other side of the Dairy Queen. They can enter the plaza, go through the plaza drive aisle, and then come into the Seven Brew site through this area. The queue entrance is close to the High Street side. Here we have lane 1 and lane 2 labels. That is the entrance. So as you enter, you would kind of circulate through the queue towards the south, around the back side of the building, and then up towards the plan right side. This is where that pickup area would be, where the brewis walk your order out to you. So you can see here in the center, it's a concrete island with the coffee shop building here, the 510 square feet, and the roughly 200 square foot cooler building. They do have a canopy that extends from the coffee shop. It extends out plan right over completely over the inner queue lane, and it extends over about 4 feet of the outer queue lane, just enough to cover that driver's side window. So as those brewis are bringing the orders out in inclement weather, they're under cover, so they're not getting rained on or snowed on. There is, as you come around the back, there is a pass-through lane or a bypass lane that builds for anybody who wants to exit the queue, perhaps they forgot their wallet, or it's a longer line than they anticipated, they would like to leave. They do have that ability coming around the back. We located the refuse container, the dumpster, up on the top right corner, trying to tuck it away from the queue lane so that as trash pickup happens, it doesn't impact the operations, it doesn't back up traffic out into the street. It's angled so that it can be picked up from the shopping plaza side, so it really is minimal impact from a traffic standpoint to the public way. And then we have 6 employee parking spaces located here on the far north end by the Dairy Queen. As I mentioned, there's no indoor seating, so it really is just employee parking here. They max out at 5 to 6 employees per shift, so 6 parking spaces is about what they need. We do show the required EV space, the one ADA compliant space, and then we have a striped crosswalk heading towards the building. Let's see, the setbacks are all in compliance with regulations. From a building standpoint, the closest is the High Street side. We have about 7-8 feet to spare in excess of the required setback. Parking, similar, the closest is the High Street side. We are more or less matching that setback, and it's actually an improvement on existing conditions. The paving on that side goes pretty much right up to the street line. Let's see. Quickly, a couple other minor items. We are proposing full site lighting, so when the application comes, we'll have a full site photometric plan with that. Seven Brew would like to request an LED ribbon light similar to a neon light around the canopy. I can show what that may look like or where that would go on the rendering in a moment. That's something I certainly would like to solicit any feedback you may have on that. I believe that would classify as a waiver that we would need to request for that. And then landscaping, we more or less have gone through the full design at this point, but I can share a brief bit. Let's see. So we do have a full comprehensive landscape plan that includes all drought-tolerant plants. Seven Brew would like to request a waiver from the irrigation requirement because strategically they have selected drought-tolerant plants. So we would like to understand if that's something you all would be open to. But as you can see, there's a fairly robust planting plan here with a number of shade trees. We have screening around the dumpster enclosure. Seven Brew typically likes a masonry enclosure around the 3 sides, so it is completely blocking sight lines, and then a solid gate on the front side. But the plantings around the back certainly help soften that appearance and further screen it even more. And then adding some shrubs along the street side between both the parking and the queue and the road to, again, further break up the appearance and soften the development. So just quickly, before I jump to the elevations or the rendering, generally Seven Brew facilities are open from about 5:30 in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night. Their hours vary slightly on the weekend. I do not remember those variations off the top of my head, but I can certainly get that information for the formal application. But generally it is 5:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. They do have a range of different beverage products that cater towards both mornings and afternoons, evenings. As I mentioned, 6 employees per shift is the maximum. Let's see. I mentioned the potential waivers, so there were a few we wanted to discuss. There's the neon tube lighting, which I can bring up on the rendering. The irrigation, They would also like to request consideration for this back area of the center island right here. It's a small area. They would like to request consideration for synthetic grass there. This is an area that, as the texters are walking up and down the queue, they do walk through that area very heavily. So with such a small strip, if it were to be vegetated, it would get beaten down very quickly, and the plant viability would be very low. They do want a little bit of green space there, so they request consideration for that. If not, we would likely look to making the entire island concrete, because again, it is a very heavy foot traffic area. If we were to vegetate that, whether it's plantings or grass, it would likely not survive well. If we were to put stone or mulch there, with the heavy foot traffic, it would get kicked out into the drive aisle and could become a trip hazard for the texters as they are walking up and down. We'll touch upon the architecture in a moment. The last item that we wanted to potentially discuss from a waiver standpoint was the requirement for a loading or delivery stall. We did look throughout the area. Pretty much all of these quick serve restaurants, we did not see any with a loading stall. Certainly, feel free to correct me if I may have missed one or two. Operationally, Seven Brew schedules their deliveries off-peak, and in many cases what they do where available is they have the delivery vehicle park in the bypass lane in those off-peak hours, so that in this location it would probably be here on the right side at the beginning of the pass-through lane where it kind of straightens out, so that the truck is out of the queue lane, so it doesn't block the normal operations. And they're also fairly closely located to the back of the coffee shop building where the dry goods and the products will all enter the building. So I think with that, I can jump to the rendering. So this is their prototypical rendering. It's not site specific yet. That's being worked on, but as you can see from this image here, their proposed finishes consist generally of more masonry appearance. It is Nichiha panels, so it's more of a prefab concrete panel, but it is imprinted and colored to look like brick above, more of like a stone pattern brick above, and more of a traditional brick below. It is roughly, I'll say, 1.5 stories in height. Generally, the peak of the roof line is about 20 feet. The second floor is not an occupied space, so that's why we say it's 1.5 floors. On some locations, they do have access up there for dry goods storage for long-term storage, but it's not a space that they frequent. And then you can see here the canopy in this kind of blue-green color coming across. That is where they typically propose that LED strip lighting along the canopy, and then and many times they like to put it under the roof line as well to help accent the signage on that main elevated element of the building. So then just operationally from this rendering, you can also see the enter to the queue lanes on the right side, circulating around, and you have the canopy extending over the first few feet of this outer queue lane on the left for pickup. They have the sliding doors here on the left side of the building and this view for those brewistas to walk the product out to the cars. And then the last item I wanted to mention, it is hidden from view here, but the cooler building is kind of just off screen to the back right here of the main building. Generally, those are, it's a prefab unit that comes, they're usually a metal wall panel. We recognize that's not a preferred finish. Seven Brew would be open to considering or would request consideration for either public art to be painted on the outside, or if need be, they have the ability to go with alternate exterior finishes, likely similar Nichi hot panels to the main building. So I think that is a pretty quick flyover. I could certainly go into more of the engineering details if you would like. We did have an SRTC meeting, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, so I did take a bunch of those notes. We do have a lot of those more technical comments, but I'd open questions.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Gomet? Now, you said the southbound cars coming in from the south, they're gonna enter the front parking lot here, go around the building. Are they gonna have to go back around the building and exit to the light?
So if they are looking to exit southbound, yes, they will have to go back to the light to exit.
Okay.
Yes.
Because there is a traffic island there, but
Yes, and that was the point of, we really wanted to emphasize with that driveway, put an island in the middle, forcing the cars to take the right in, right out.
they're actually
there.
moving the entrance towards the north side of the property. There is an entrance to the plaza just south.
So the entrance to the plaza just south of the cemetery, I assume you're
Correct.
referring to, that will remain. That's, we're not.
There is
proposing
not going to be a
touch
big entrance to the kiosk from that right after that, like there is now to the gas station.
that. We're closing, right, the one just north of the cemetery, we're closing that off.
All right.
Correct. Yep, so to the there's gonna be the entrance to the plaza just south of the cemetery, and then the one just north we're closing off, and the one farther north, which I guess would be just below the Dairy Queen, that's where the right in, right out would be.
All right. Because if they could enter the back of the store from the south entrance instead of going up to the lights.
Correct. Yes, northbound traffic could come in the plaza from the cemetery area and come in the Seven Brew through this right side. Yep.
That would eliminate a lot of extra traffic going up to the light for one thing. But
Yes.
personally, I like the modern type building, and for what's there right now, this would be a big improvement for that part of town. I don't see any problem with what's going on right now. I know there'll probably be some technical questions and stuff later on, but I'm looking at this as a plus again for the city. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you. So to start off with, I love the idea. I think it's a good fit for the area. I do have a few questions here, though. So first off, you've got a line designating the existing lease space. Are you looking to acquire that additional space from Brixmor, or should we expect this plan to shrink?
So Seven Brew has discussed this with Brixmor, and they are in agreement on expanding the lease area.
Okay.
I will say there's one piece we are still investigating. It came up during SRTC that there is a state regulation that development or disturbance should be 25 feet away from a cemetery. The way the code is written from our recent research is that it ultimately it's not state enforceable, it's enforceable on the local level. And there is some flexibility there for working within existing disturbed footprints. So that's something we're working on. I've reached out to the engineering department to discuss that, but certainly happy to discuss with others here or Michelle on what that may look like. So depending on how that discussion goes, may alter the southern end of the development footprint.
Okay, sounds good. Next question I had was around traffic control at the exit points of the queue, particularly where the entrance from the existing plaza comes in there. I'm thinking of the typical New England driver in a pre-caffeinated state, and thinking that there's a high probability of some minor accidents frequently happening there if you don't have any kind of control beyond paint.
Yes, so we do propose the paint stop bars. We can certainly explore other control means. It actually came up during SRTC that there may be a high volume of traffic cutting east to west through Seven Brew here, and I believe it was the police department who ultimately strongly requested we put in a speed bump here, and we are more than willing to do that. So that's something that we would implement in the permit plans.
Sounds good. Glad you're thinking of that. That's very good to hear. You had a couple of items on landscaping and a waiver from irrigation. As long as you're going with drought tolerant plants, we've granted those frequently in the past. I doubt you'd have an issue here. The only question I'd have on there is glancing at the species. It looks like those don't currently conform to the city requested list. So that may bear some examination. There are multiple drought tolerant species on there, so you'd still be able to go with that sort of plan. But those look like relatively standard landscape plantings as opposed to what's on our list. Okay. Dealing with the synthetic turf, I would rather not see AstroTurf on a site like this. I don't think it's a good look. I would be more in favor of hardscape, whether that's with planters or with some sort of more upscale appearing concrete pavers, something along those lines, than AstroTurf. And I would not want to see natural planting in there or mulch. I completely agree with you. It would not survive a month, much less a season. And we would have people tripping on it. No issue with the delivery plan. I think we've got multiple quick service restaurants that don't have any kind of entry or dedicated loading space. I think the only one that we've seen a plan for would be Pressed, across the way from me a bit, and they're a much more delivery heavy organization where they have sit down and dining inside. So I wouldn't have any concerns with that plan. On the LED strip light thing, there might be some discussion on the board. I've fully come out in favor of exaggerated architecture in this area. Everything's written as New England architecture, and we've had this discussion many times. Nobody can really identify what that means. We've also got a huge variety of architectural styles in the city. Where you're looking at going is basically, modern American strip mall. So as long as you conform to a more upscale appearance, which you're definitely doing here, I don't think you'd have an issue getting that waiver. The LED light might have some debate. I'm fully in favor of lighting these places to make them look attractive. Decorative lighting is a plus for this sort of thing in my mind, and I think other members of the board would debate, but you'd have at least some support. Dealing with the cooler building, absolute support for public art installation on there. I cannot stress how much I want to see that sort of thing coming in on plans, and the fact that we're talking about that twice on conceptual reviews in the last 3 or 4 months is hugely encouraging to me. I would be strongly in favor of that over any other kind of treatment for that building. Also, in terms of the prefab, pre-dyed concrete cladding, I think the main thing that we've had discussions around here is materials like EFIS that usually get beaten to pieces after a couple of seasons of plowing. I don't think you'd have concerns around this surviving it. So I think the main concerns that I would have would be around landscaping, around traffic control at the exit. I'm glad you're ahead of both of those, and love what you're going for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you. Oddly enough, I've been to a 7 Brew down in North Carolina. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, so I welcome another opportunity up this way. So, and I was taken back by the approach with the outside greeting and then the brewista that brought my beverage out on the other side. So all I can say is it worked and it was inviting, and I thought it was interesting. I like conceptually where we're at with this plan. The closure of the southerlymost existing entrance on this pad site, that would be done with granite curbing and improving the sidewalk to match and all of that. So I just made that note. I also would like to see tactile handicap tip downs at the proposed entrance. The sidewalk out there currently is paved, but I would like to see a concrete apron with the tactile strip embedded at both of those points. It's just more robust. I've seen some developers that try to cheap it out with like a glue down version, and it gets peeled up by sidewalk clearing equipment. So that needs to be done correctly, and I would welcome it there. The refrigeration unit, I love the idea of the art, as Mr. Rhodes said, that resonates with me. If for some reason there was difficulty with that, I know the next door at the Dairy Queen, theirs is at least color matched to the building. I think what makes this one a bit different is that it's a standalone. So I think a different treatment makes sense here, at least on the street side. The rest may be color matched, but I'm willing to work with you a bit there, but I do like the art idea. And to the point about appearance, I'm in favor of that LED strip lighting. I don't think it works everywhere in the city, but it certainly can work out here because you're in front of there are gas stations with canopies and lighting, so this would work in that area for sure. Similarly, I would support the waiver from irrigation provided your plants are sustainable. We will have a condition of approval that landscaping needs to survive, and if it doesn't, so you're going to be on the hook to make sure it survives. So that's the key. I also kind of grimaced a little bit about the synthetic turf. I didn't know how I would feel about it. I think snow removal on it could be difficult. So I think a concrete paver or some treatment like that makes some sense. I agree that natural plantings don't make any sense for that area. The last thing I want to talk about is traffic, so I really like this plan. It is not too dissimilar from Burger King on the inside, Burger King Dairy Queen on the inside. You do have a dedicated right in, right out. There's a traffic island out there, so no one is going to try to make a left unless you have a big truck or something, and they don't even want to do that. So I think we're pretty safe there. What I would say is if you look at the Dairy Queen within the plaza environment itself, they have created a dedicated travel lane road, if you will, that separates the parking stalls for the plaza from their establishment. So it is I'll call it a road for lack of a better description. It doesn't have a name or anything, but I would see a continuation of that right to the rear of this property as well. Now that's off plan, that's in the Brixmore parcel, but creating some sort of designated lane there I think is going to be important because as was indicated by Mr. Gilmet, I think you are going to have people that enter south of the cemetery and then try to come in that way, and it'll be going across parking spaces. So if we can have dedicated drive aisle, similar to what they did with the Dairy Queen, because they also put stops at the end of the aisles that exit the parking stalls, so it creates this passageway, roadway. I'm having a hard time describing it, but you're nodding your head, so I think you're understanding me. So, access road. So I think it's important to have that continuity across that, now this entire side. So other than that, I'm in favor. I like where we are conceptually with this.
Mr. Richardson, then Mr. Barry.
Yeah, if I may on that last piece, I think I'm following, but I just want to make sure. So right now, I know it's hard to see because we have the existing conditions in really light gray that even I'm having a hard time seeing right next to it. But so if we're in the outer, the pass-through lane here, right at the very edge of that lease line, there is space for a landscaped island separating the queue and bypass from the shopping plaza. So what we've got, if the project were approved, we would have the queue, the 7 Brew pad site, all of that. Then there is, I believe it's about an 8-foot landscaped island separating the 7 Brew side from the plaza. Then a drive aisle in the plaza, and then they're parking on the other side. So I believe that would satisfy your
correct,
comment?
as long as that drive aisle was
Yes.
two-way and it was somehow distinctive from the parking stalls, whether that's with paint, curbing, something.
Yeah, perfect.
On that same subject.
That's okay. If it's the same subject, go let him.
Mr. Gilmet?
I know there's an island that comes in off that road that goes in about 100 feet or 200 feet beyond the back of that parking lot. If they could cut an existing road.
Turn
into
on your
that
mic, please.
island,
You turn on your mic.
if they cut an island, cut that island to make that existing road go right behind the building, instead of having to go out that 100 or 200 feet beyond the parking lot as you enter that side road, I think that would eliminate a lot of the traffic getting into the parking lot to get to that south entrance.
Yes, we do actually have that. It's right at the very bottom, bottom right down here, I think where you're referring to. We are proposing to cut in a one-way aisle in so that the traffic coming in below the cemetery can cut in. We don't want that section being two-way since that cemetery entrance it's an entrance only, but we do have that cut through.
Yeah, I'm familiar with I plow that parking lot all winter, so I know that if they took that island out, it would be a blessing, but.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, it would eliminate a lot of traffic going into the parking lot if they could actually do that entrance.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, I showed this picture to my wife, who has nothing to do with planning or whatever else, and I said, what do you think of it? Her first reaction was for the safety of the people going out to deliver the product. Especially the outside lane. They're crossing a lane. And I'm glad you said you plow that parking lot, but well, it was a nice little lead-in, actually. It can get pretty slippery around here in the wintertime. And she was concerned about the safety of the employees crossing over that. And for somebody that's the first word out of their mouth when they see a picture, that's an issue. I don't know how you deal with that. You probably don't have the same kind of snow conditions in the south, throughout the winter that we have up here, and freezing rain and all of that. I don't know how you deal with that. But that is an issue of concern. I don't know if you have some kind of special footing that can be put down there, or have heating under that walkway so it melts. I don't know what you do about it, but I'd be worried about those employees crossing that. The other thing and I find myself saying this all the time, about the trash collection. At first I was wondering, how is that going to be picked up? Is the truck going to be going through the pass-through lane? There's no way going through the pass-through lane that truck's going to be able to make that turn to get there. You would be better off putting it straight in front of it. But now you're saying it would be coming through from the parking lot side. That's even worse. You only got about 20 feet there. Those trucks need at least a 50, 60-foot straight run. When they got the forks down and they're going into to pick that thing up, the truck itself is 40 feet long. You need some room, and there's no room for that to be picked up. So you need to look at that. Whether you cut off that corner and straighten it out, maybe that's a possibility if they're coming in from the parking lot. But the way that is, it's not going to happen. So take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so I really like this idea. I love the layout. It's going to change how the coffee game is done here. I think the competitors around here are going to be nervous. So I'm very excited to one day try their style out. I like the design of the building. I like the layout of everything. I think Mr. Richardson makes a very good point. We definitely need to be careful about safety, right? Even though it does appear to be covered, ice is a problem here, right? I really like your southerly entrance. I love that. That's my one thing, because I use that all the time if I'm going northbound on the main drag. So knowing that now you have a straight shot all the way through it, you're improving the flow for the entire site, not just for yours. Love it. The only thing that makes me sad, and this is just a personal gripe of mine, is the cemetery. I look at that cemetery and I look at the one next to Taco Bell, and I feel so sad for those folks. Their resting place is now completely encapsulated by pavement. That sucks. That's awful. I don't know who owns that cemetery. I know, you spoke of, it's up to the local discretion, I don't know who exactly that is, but it would be very appropriate, at least in my opinion, to align with whoever owns that parcel to try and improve the situation. Because let's be frank, those residents can't be here and they can't say no, right? So I'd love to see some form of bushes, some form of screening. Let these folks have some peace, right? Take care of the site, right? I want the business to thrive. I want you guys to be successful, but we also need to be respectful for our citizens, right? The ones that went before us, right? So I look forward to having you back. I support your project, but please look into that. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Gilmet? I know he's talking about the garbage pickup in the back of the building. I know that they do it for the Dairy Queen. It's on an angle. They come in off the parking lot. There's usually not an issue when they come in because there is quite a bit of room in that area. But not having it inside the picture and having it out the back, I think would be the ideal spot for that anyway.
Okay.
It's just, again, my opinion, so.
I will share, we typically, and I'm trying to flip through the plans and see if I have it in here, but we usually provide, and it will be in the full application set, a truck turning movement showing a trash truck coming in and circulating through the site. And we do verify that the design vehicle, the trash truck in this case, can make the movement and pick up the trash. That's one of the pieces we do verify when we place the dumpster, so we can certainly put that in the formal plan set to show that the trash truck has the ability to pick up the dumpster and empty it properly.
Because I think with that southern entrance coming in on an angle to I've been behind the wheel of a truck for a long time, so I think you could get that in there very appropriately and not have an issue, and then still barricade it like you had planned, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Witham, and then Mr. Barden.
Thank you. I would just encourage between now and maybe a formal submission of a site plan for this project that board members check out. You've already indicated the Chick-fil-A model, the one down in Newington close by, to check that out and see how that flows. It is very similar to this, larger in scale, but conceptually pretty much the same thing. It works fairly well. Being somewhat familiar with what they do in those establishments during inclement weather, they have special micro spikes that they put on their folks and other treatments because obviously they want to control their work comp exposure. So I think Mr. Richardson's concern is a valid one, but these organizations have figured that out. So.
Mr. Barden.
I assume one of the reasons you initially were considering AstroTurf was for employee comfort. It's easier on their joints as they're walking back and forth, but I also sympathize with the aesthetic concern raised by my colleagues here. A possible compromise is that elderly tennis players who want both the true footing of a hard court but the gentleness of a clay court sometimes opt for a kind of rubberized pave. Now, I've played on it, and it's very comfortable in that respect. It works, but the color wasn't that of the concrete that the building would be on. But if something like that is color matchable, that might be a compromise to consider. And regarding the tube lighting to trim the building, I support that on both levels. I think it would fit with the environment generally and complete the building's own aesthetic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? Any further action at this time? Director Mears.
None this evening.
We thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your feedback.
Item 4E, any new business coming before the board, Director Mears?
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any workshop business?
None this evening.
Communications and miscellaneous, any comments by the board? Director Mears.
I just have an update on the zoning changes for split lot zonings in the agricultural and the form-based code update for conditional use permit. They passed at the city council last Monday. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you.
That would have been in my report if I was on time tonight.
Any further communications? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Mr. Barry. Second by Mr. Gomet. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Thank you very much.